So a lot of y'all don't know a lot about me. I'm a fairly private person. I'm going to tell y'all a little fun fact. I am a fairly pessimistic person. I feel like it's easier to notice the bad when there's a lot more of it out there. My glass is always half empty. And especially around this time when everybody's all filled with joy, I just kind of look around and I'm just like, yeah, cool, Christmas. Like, I'm glad Jesus is here, don't get me wrong, but that's just how I look at things. And I was having a conversation with a friend the other day. Absolutely loves Christmas, just over the moon about it. And I was like, yeah, but me being the naturally curious person I am, I go, or his exact words, I wish it was Christmas year-round. I love the way it makes me feel. And I was like, but why? And he was like, because it makes you feel so good. Like, the world just looks brighter. You get all the colors and everything that people love. It just catches your eye. It just makes you feel better. And so me being the lovely, wonderful person that I am, that everybody loves to have a conversation with, go, I don't need a time of year to make me feel good about myself. I can do that year-round, or I can choose not to. It's up to me. It doesn't depend on time. It is fully, I am in control of that. I love that. And I know that for a lot of other people, just because the calendar magically hits December, it doesn't make their lives any easier. Life is hard, always was, always will be, and sometimes people go through some terrible things, and just because it hits December doesn't mean that just goes away. And so, like I said, I'm a pessimistic person, and that's just how I viewed it, and we had this back and forth, and eventually we just had to agree to disagree. The holidays are not always merry, cheerful, and bright, no matter what the music tells you, no matter what people say. It's just a sad reality of life that people go through things. And some people experience the darkest time of their years right now. This was my mother's first Christmas without her mom. So you can't convince me that she didn't think about that when she was watching us open our presents or something. I think that's going to weigh on her for the rest of her life, just to know that she was there for 58 years, and now her mom is gone. Like, that's something she's going to have to deal with every Christmas, every Mother's Day, no matter what the holiday is. She's going to have to learn to live with that. For others, it isn't a loss. It's the financial strain that the holidays can often bring. Oh my gosh, my kid wants this present. How in the world can we possibly provide that? It adds a lot of stress to people's life. For others, it's battles with seasonal depression. It hits people like a Mack truck when Christmas comes around. Nothing reminds you that you're alone more than being alone on a holiday where you're supposed to be around other people, your family, people that love you. I think this is a time where people begin pleading with God for situations to change more than they normally would, and hallelujah for the ones that do, but that's not always the case. Some people have to learn how to navigate that. They have to be stuck in this waiting process. Your burdens don't care about the time of year. They don't care if you're supposed to feel merry, cheerful, and bright. And they don't care if this is the one time that you get to be around your family and that you're supposed to be happy. They just don't. You have to learn how to navigate that. So if you go with me to Mark chapter 5, we'll be in verse 21 through 34. And when Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered around him, and he was beside the sea. Then came out one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and seeing him, he fell at his feet and implored him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her so that she will be made well and live." And he went with him. And a great crowd followed him and thronged about him. And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years. And who had suffered much under many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and she was no better, but grew worse. She had heard the reports about Jesus, and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, "If I touch even his garment, I will be made well." And immediately the flow of blood dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone out of him, immediately turned about in the crowd, and said, "Who touched my garment?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing around you, and yet you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, and fell down before him, and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." So if we go back to the beginning of that in verses 21 through 24, you have this man, Jairus. He has a very good reputation. That was terrible English, but sorry. Couldn't think of a better word. He has this reputation. He is a great man. He has a lot of power in their area of the world. But in desperation, he comes seeking Jesus. He is in pain over this situation that his daughter is going through, and there's nothing he can do about it. He just has to sit and watch that happen. So when he comes to Jesus, he falls at his feet, pleading for his help. And in verse 24, you see that Jesus decides to go. I can't imagine what that man would have felt in that moment. That must have been the world's biggest weight lifted off his shoulders. Like the one thing that has been throwing my life out of whack, I don't have to worry about anymore. The one person who can handle this problem, the one person who can fix everything, just agreed to follow me to come to my house to heal my daughter. I can't imagine how good that must have felt. I think he was, I'm not much for, like I said, I'm a pessimistic person. You can tell if I'm happy, but I don't really smile that much. So I imagine this guy being kind of like me in this moment. So internally, he's probably jumping for joy, but he's like, all right, can't get too excited. Hasn't happened yet. So he's thinking, in his mind, he must be thinking, this is the moment that I've prayed for. This is the moment my family has awaited desperately, and nothing can stop Jesus from healing my daughter. And then you get to verse 25 through 34. And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years, and who had suffered much under many physicians and had spent all that she had, and she was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard the reports about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, if I touch even his garment, I will be made well. And immediately the flow of blood dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone out from him, immediately turned about in the crowd and whispered, or said, who touched my garments? And his disciples said to him, you see the crowd pressing around you, and yet you say, who touched me? And he looked around to see who had done it, but the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease. Here we have this amazing story of relentless faith of a woman who has suffered for 12 years, and she has enough faith to touch Jesus' garment and get healed. And it's amazing. It's great. I will never discount this story. I want to know what Jairus' perspective is through this. Because if it was me sitting there, I would have thought, this is an unnecessary interruption to my need, to the thing that I need done for me, the thing that I found you first, you're coming with me, you were going to heal my daughter, but this is an unnecessary interruption to what I need to happen. I've always wondered what he's thinking, what his perception of this event is. And unfortunately, we don't know, and all I can do is speculate. But I just, time is of the essence for his daughter. She is not getting any better. And he knows that. And here you have to stop and wait for this interaction to happen. And yes, it's great. It's another miracle. But in the moment, when you need a miracle desperately and you see it happening for other people, it's not the easiest thing to carry in the world. It's not the best feeling. It's great. I love to see God working for other people, but there are times in your life when you desperately need it and you're not getting it yet, and you're watching all these great things happen for other people, and you're just kind of sitting there like, oh, well, when's it my turn? Are there problems more important than mine? I wonder if he thought, is this woman's life more valuable than my daughter's? Because again, if it was me, I don't know how old this woman was, but older than the daughter, I would sit there and be like, she lived a life. My daughter still has a life to live, hopefully, if you just touch her, Let's get to rolling, Jesus. And I think it's interesting, the concept of time. You have these moments that it could be for 10 seconds, but it feels like it lasts an entire lifetime. And I just have to imagine him sitting there watching all this happen, just time freezes, and all he can think about is what's happening back at home that he can't fix. And the person that can fix it is just stopping. So, Seth and Evan, please come up here really quick. This is a little example of how time feels different when you're doing things. Can you all see him? Y'all can all see him? I would like you to just stand there for like 10 seconds.
Sounds good.
Do a plank for like 10 seconds. That was not 10 seconds. I'm counting up here. All right, that's about good. Did that feel like 10 seconds?
No.
How long did that feel like to you?
Eternity.
Felt like 5 seconds.
Point proven. Y'all can go sit down. So we just established that a normal 10 seconds goes by a lot slower or a lot faster than a plank 10 seconds. For those of y'all that have never done plank, they're terrible. I don't recommend them to anybody. Time under stress and duress or time in suffering seems to last so much longer than it normally does. You have the quote, time flies when you're having fun. Time also slows down when your life isn't going so well. I wonder how well he waited while Jesus was performing this miracle for someone else. How long did this moment last for Jairus while he's thinking about his daughter? I'm the kind of guy that if I have something, I'm way ahead of myself. How many of you might feel like this right now? How many of you are watching God do things for other people and you're just kind of sitting there while you're suffering and it's lasting an eternity, just wondering? How many of you feel pushed aside? How many of you feel like your problems might be less important to God, not as high on the agenda or priority list? How many of you are watching God perform miracles for other people while waiting for yours? How many of you are growing bitter because it seems like he cares more for other people than he cares for you? I have these little get-to-know-you questions. For those of y'all that don't know, I majored in psychology in college, so I like to analyze people, and a lot of people don't like to know that they're being analyzed. So I like to disguise it with these fun questions. And one of them is, if you could have anything for free for the rest of your life, whenever you want it, as soon as you want it, what would it be? And if somebody was like, I would travel, it's a safe bet to assume that they're a pretty, I just had the word I was thinking of, and I lost it. Pretty adventurous person, you know? So little things like that. And me and my dad were talking one night and asked him that question. If you could have anything for free for the rest of your life, whenever you wanted it, as soon as you want it, what would it be? And his exact words were, to have a tangible encounter with God. Nobody had ever answered that question that way. Nobody has since. And I sit there and I think about that a lot. How many of you are wrestling with God, begging and pleading and doing everything that you possibly can to have an encounter with him? And if you could just have it for free whenever you wanted it, as soon as you want it, you think it would make life so much better? How many of you are crying out in desperation for circumstances to change or to experience some work in your life? Or for some of y'all, it's not even something that you necessarily need. It's you care so deeply about someone else and you're watching them suffer, and it pains you to watch that. And if you could just experience God whenever you wanted, as soon as you wanted. How many of us are waiting for God? How many of us know that he is always working, but you sit back and you watch him working and you think, yeah, I know he's always working. He's just not working for me. It's a hard place to live, but I feel like a lot of people live there. If you go to Matthew 7:7, sorry, I didn't have that in my scripture thing, but I got you. I can read. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find it. Knock and it will be open to you. And we love reading this verse. What it doesn't tell you is how long it's going to take in between. So you have this idea of you're going up to like your neighbor's house and you knock, and the door will be opened immediately because they hear you knocking, and they're probably expecting you to come. But what do you do when the asking turns into begging? When the seeking turns into a full-on manhunt for God just to even have a minute with him? When knocking turns into kicking down the door? We aren't good at waiting as a society, and I think it's because we haven't been properly trained how to operate in this space. I think the church doesn't necessarily do the best job at teaching us how to wait. Like growing up, I grew up as a pastor's child, so I was in church my whole life. And all I'd ever heard is, yeah, when things get hard, just wait on God. Great, cool. That's it? That's the only step. No, you got to have faith and trust that He can do it. Cool, what else? I feel like there's so much more that you can do. As a Christian, I don't believe trusting in God to change your situation just means sitting there and letting everything pile up on you. Because that's the way I interpreted it as a little kid. And I mean, even to some degree in my young adult life, wait on God, trust in Him, have faith. Okay, so I just have to sit there and, all right, God, I trust you. Take another blow. That hurt, God, but I still trust you. And take another blow. Okay, God, this has been going on for a while, but I still trust you. And then you take another blow. And it just starts to weigh on you. And it's hard in those moments to continue to sit and do nothing and to have faith. But you have to. And one thing that helps with that is knowing that waiting still requires faith and action. We must wait for the moment of action so when it arrives, we can respond in faith. So this makes it easier to know what you're looking for, and the way to know what you're looking for is whenever you are in the waiting process, keep doing things, keep being involved in your church, keep having the conversation with your friends about stuff. I can't tell you how many times my friends have helped me out through rough times, and they would look at me and go, "You're just sitting here doing nothing. Nothing will ever get better if you do nothing." Mind blown. Logically, that makes so much sense. But when we were told to wait on God, we feel like you have to just sit there and do nothing. Even in the waiting, the father didn't lose his faith. As you go throughout the story, you find out a little bit more about that situation. We'll come back to that. Even after this unnecessary interruption to the father's crisis, he still had to believe when no one else did. And later on, you find out that he is still standing there when Jesus is doing all this. He never left. He never lost faith. He was still standing there. John Piper has a quote, "Waiting for the Lord in a season of darkness should not be a time of inactivity. We should do what we can do, and doing is often God's appointed remedy for despair." So again, for those of y'all that, if you're like me and things get really bad, like I already don't love to be around people. When they get bad, it's a lot worse. I say this after youth camp. I was so burnt out that we got back on a Thursday afternoon. I did not leave my room till Sunday morning, and I maybe said 150 words out loud that whole time. So if that's me normally, just imagine it if everything is going wrong in my life. I just completely shut down. I don't talk to anybody. I don't go anywhere. And I don't say much either, but I'm normally like that. But waiting for the Lord in a season of darkness should not be a time of inactivity. We should do what we can do, and doing is often God's best appointed remedy for despair. Biblical waiting is an active verb. Waiting is being aware through all the senses of what is occurring around you and discerning the right time to do the next thing. I have this little mantra of sorts, I guess, that I say to myself. It started out, y'all know what the Stairmaster is? Anybody? Those things are brutal. So I'd never done it before, and the first day I happened to do it was on the anniversary of 9/11, and I was talking to a friend in the gym, and she was like, yeah, an easy day is 50 flights to 70, a hard day I'll get 100. I was like, yeah, I'm not letting you beat me, so I'm a naturally competitive person. I climb up there, I'm like, I got this. I'm a man, I can do this. So I started, and after 20 minutes, I'm laid over it, dripping sweat, absolutely miserable. I want to quit. And I look up, and I'm at 70. It's okay, if I'm going to get this in 30 minutes, I have to up the speed. So 5 minutes goes by. I don't remember what I was at, but I remember looking up, and I was like, okay, we're almost there. I was so close. I can do this. And then after another 5 minutes, I'm still laid out over the top of this, and I'm just staring at the steps. I'm just it would be so easy to quit right now. I already beat her. I'm good. I'm doing good. I can quit. And then I'm just staring at the steps, because if I didn't pay attention to them, I'm either kicking the one that's coming down, or my foot's not getting all the way on the other one, and I'm going to fall off. And I'm super competitive, and I was like, no, I don't want to just beat her. Like, I want to destroy her. Like, I want her to know that I am better than her at the stair stepper. So I just kept staring at the steps, and I told myself, just take the next right step. Just take the next right step. Just take the next right step. I think that's a good way to look at life. Regardless of times are good, regardless of times are bad, just take the next right step. And the next right step might look different for everybody. I have a friend who plays basketball at McMurray, and she completely blew out her knee. And the night before her surgery, we were talking about it, and I was asking her how she was doing. And I told her that. I was like, it's not going to be easy. You know that. Rehab is really hard. Watching your team play without you is going to be really hard. Just take the next right step. And the beauty of it is it looks different for everybody. So one day your next right step is you're the happiest person on earth and you are thanking God for everything that is going right in your life. And the next day, the next right step might be you breaking down in your room and crying. It does not matter. Just take the next right step for you. I believe the Father took the next right step when he came to Jesus in the first place. He is in this moment of just watching his daughter suffering, and he hears about some guy who's performed miracles, and he's coming through his little town or village or whatever. And so he took the next right step. He was waiting, and when he heard this, he took the step. He went out and found Jesus. When Jesus interacts with the woman, Jairus takes the next right step again, and he remains by Jesus' side. And a little later, when he hears that his daughter dies, he takes the next right step and continues to trust when no one else does. So if we go back to Mark chapter 5, verse 35 through 43. And while he was still speaking, there came from the ruler's house some who said, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the ruler of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." And he allowed no one to follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. They came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and Jesus saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. And when he had entered, he said to them, "Why are you making such a commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. But he put them all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him and went in there where the child was. Taking her by the hand, he said to her, "Talitha kumai," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." And immediately the girl got up and began walking, for she was 12 years of age. And they were immediately overcome with amazement. So there's a lot we can learn about this. Again, you see the Father takes the next right step. Perspective is an interesting thing, especially whenever you compare like our perspective to God's perspective. And I think the story does that well. How many of y'all have ever heard perception shapes reality? So the reason why I believe the world is such a terrible place and all these sad things are happening is because I'm a pessimistic person. I lean into it. To everyone, the daughter was dead and gone. But Jesus says she's asleep. She's just sleeping. And I think that shows the difference between our perspectives is, for one, it's a world-ending, life-ending scenario, and to Jesus, it's just, she's just taking a nap. I also think it was interesting that Jesus left it up to Jairus to decide what he believed. You see that in verse 36. But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the ruler of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." We can't see our circumstances with physical eyes. If we do that, you will never be anywhere in life because, again, we live in a broken, terrible, dark, cold, awful world. We have to learn how to view everything through a spiritual lens, and it's hard. It is hard. It is not an easy thing to do. I'm, again, 22 years old, been in the church for 22 years of my life. Some of y'all have been here a lot longer than I have. And we still find it hard to view things through a spiritual lens whenever the most gut-wrenching things are happening in your life, when the most heartbreaking situations are occurring. It makes it hard. But I think we also need to know that unbelief and fear can hinder God from moving. And if we desperately want God to move, then we have to learn how to view things with the spiritual lens. We have to learn how to separate the badness of this world and the goodness of our God, because we know that God will always win. He is always sovereign. Back to the passage in verse 37 through 43. And he allowed no one to follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. They came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and Jesus saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. And when he had entered, he said to them, "Why are you making a commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. But he put them all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him and went in where the child was. Taking her by the hand, he said to her, "Talitha cumi," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." And immediately the girl got up and began walking, for she was 12 years of age, and they were immediately overcome with amazement. And he strictly charged them that no one should know this, and told them to give her something to eat. From our perspective, the girl is dead. I've lived my whole life knowing that this girl passes away. I wish I had the optimism to go, no, Jesus was right. She was just taking a nap. But I've always believed that she died. All it takes is one touch, one word, one act of faith, and God can move in powerful and mighty ways. God can change any situation, including yours. We just have to take the next right step. We have to learn how to wait properly and take the next right step in faith when it comes. Our despair is God's opportunity. We have to come to the end of ourselves so he can work. How many of you are thinkers and problem solvers? I am. I will drive myself absolutely insane trying to figure out the solution to all my problems just for me to end up falling on my knees and giving it to God. And I've realized over time, and I'm not great at it, but we're getting better, I can just fast track all of that if I just fall on my knees and give it to God immediately. But I'm a thinker and a problem solver, and so I have to know. Not knowing something makes me feel so uneasy, like anxiety all throughout my body. I can't stand it. And so if I can't figure out the solution to this problem, when it happens again, what do? I don't know the answer. It freaks me out. The reality is, though, if you just fall down and give it to God immediately, and then the problem gets fixed, the next time it happens, what do? You fall down and give it to God again. But I have a hard time doing that, and it's something I'm trying to learn how to do. When I told my dad that this was the message I was going to be giving, we talked about it, and he told me a quote, and I don't think I'll ever forget it. If you learn how to preach to those who are brokenhearted and suffering, you'll always have people to preach to. If you don't leave them with hope, you won't have anyone to preach to. So I know this message starts off kind of dark, but I've got good news for you. Just like God didn't care that this daughter was dead, it doesn't matter. He is bigger than all of the problems. He is the God over life and death. He can fix that problem. God doesn't care what your situation is. He can free you from it. Nothing is too big or too hard. He is still alive and active. Any of y'all listen to a little band called Mercy Me? My parents love them. I've been known to dabble on occasion. They came up with a little ditty a couple years ago called Even If. This is one of the most gut-wrenching songs I've ever heard in my life. It's a story about begging and pleading with God to intervene, but knowing that even if he doesn't, he is still good, and he is still sovereign over all. The chorus, I'm not going to sing it. I am not a singer. If you can imagine what a cat in a blender sounds like, that's what I tell people I sound like when I sing, so it's just not going to happen. But the chorus says, "I know you're able, and I know you can. Save through the fire with your mighty hand, but even if you don't, my hope is you alone." I have a question for y'all, and this is something I have to think about a lot too, because in the grand scheme of things, some of my problems are not the biggest things on earth. Some of them really don't matter. I just make a big deal out of them because I'm dramatic. If the only thing God ever did for you was send his son to die for you, would that be enough for you to love and serve him? And I think whenever I think about that in comparison to Oh no, I just bought a brand new pair of white shoes and somebody stepped on them. There's mud all over them now and I will never be able to get it out. When I think about that question in comparison to a shoe, if that is the worst thing that happens to me, I think I'll be okay. So for some of us, taking the next right step might be you might have to put your situation in perspective like that. For others, it is waiting for the right moment to take the next right step. And I don't know y'all's issues as well as y'all do. Only you can answer that question. For this invitation today, I want to ask a couple more questions. I'm asking those who are weighed down and brokenhearted, those who feel like their faith is running on fumes. What is your next right step? And what does God want you to do in your waiting?